But the question I want to ask is I watch all of these videos and you, with absolutely no fear, no sense of propriety, just going in, and a lot of them are just drop down. The leotard one, I was laughing out loud. Why are you the way that you are?
Well, like I said, when my parents got divorced, Michael, they fought for custody of our family dog, Primo, more than me. So I was actually raised by a German Shepherd more than I was by a two-parent home. So I come from the BLM playbook of the broken home. And just like Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, the same playbook that Barack Obama and all these freaks use on the left, I'm using it on the conservative movement. I'm basically using the rules for radical and using the projection and just projecting all of their crazy lunacy, like the fact that Leah Thomas swam on the men's team for 3 years and then was able to take some sort of medicine, some hormone therapy, and was able to compete against the women and become a national champion in multiple events. So it's ludicrous, it's absurd, but that's where we live in a world where the Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, can't even define what a woman is. And I know that is a hot topic in the Daily Wire community for the Daily Wire fans.
That angle actually makes a lot of sense to me, because sometimes when I watch your videos, listen, call me old-fashioned, but I don't know, sometimes I think, he's gone a little far, this is a little much, but then the way that you've just described it, where you say, I basically do what the left does, but I do it for the conservatives. I think, there's pretty much nothing that I've seen you do that is any more offensive than anything the left does, and it's probably much less offensive. I mean, the left is killing babies and transing kids, so obviously, you being sort of vulgar or something like that is kind of in a completely different category. Is that the idea behind this performance art in many ways, I guess I would call it?
Well, 100%. My biological father, Tucker Carlson, kind of coined it with me. It's called culture jamming, where you take the most absurd parts of our culture and you jam it in their face. But it's funny you say that, though, Michael, because I was recently the host of a concert with a guy named Bryson Gray, Forgiato Blow, and a guy named Tyson James, that are conservative rappers. And Vice News came and covered it. And at the end of the event, it was a successful event. There's 400 people. It was fun. We asked the Vice reporter, because she actually kind of had fun. She was being nice, and I have a little heat with Vice for my confrontation with Tess Owen. But that's neither here nor there. Back to my point. She said the only alarming thing to her of the whole entire event, which was a family-friendly event, no cussing. Bryson is a secular rapper. He doesn't even cuss. And I did jokes where I didn't cuss or anything. She said, I didn't like that there were so many children here, because there were a lot of kids. A lot of parents brought their kids there. And then we asked her, but what about drag queen for story time? And she's like, it's different. So these people literally want to sexualize children and have them being read story times by men in thongs. That's okay. That's social justice. But if you say abortion is bad and that we want to save babies, then you're evil. Even people like Elizabeth Warren that says crisis pregnancy centers are demonic and satanic. She says they're the bad ones, the ones trying to save a life. So that's how we're in the upside down world. I'm not even funny. Saturday Night Live isn't funny, right? Because they're too afraid of being politically incorrect. I'm politically incorrect, so I'm funny by default, just because I'm filling a void. It's not even that hard, Michael.
So what got you started? I mean, because I'm trying to think of the first time I saw you. It was relatively recently, within the last year or so, and it was probably at one of these school boards or something, and I thought, man, this is wild. I haven't seen a performance art like this in a very long time, and oh man, the guy is a right winger, and and then I just kept seeing you pop up. Where did you come from? I mean, was I missing some 10-year career or something before this that I just hadn't been aware of?
Well, we definitely need to do the hour-long conversation, but basically I worked for a TV show, Cheaters, and I signed an NDA. I can only say so much, but the host of it was a very good friend of mine named Clark Gable. He died of a fentanyl drug overdose. He bought pills that he bought like street Vicodin or whatever pain pills, and had fentanyl, and he died. And he was very close friends with him. They said, Alex, you're going to be the next host of Cheaters. Then when it came April of 2020, I'm like in the best shape of my life. This is my big opportunity, because I had worked in television. I also sold cars on the side, literally selling used cars. That's why I love creating content. Imagine getting on the hot pavement at 110 degrees for a Hispanic guy to show you that there's a car leaking, the transmission's leaking. It's not that fun, I'm just saying, doing this and playing make-believe, making fun of politicians is much easier. But my point being is, right when I was supposed to get the job, they picked a 52-year-old black guy named Peter Guns, who, God bless him, he's definitely good that he took the job. But my point being is, the show is syndicated by Viacom, so they changed his name from Peter Guns to Peter Pankey. And they just didn't want another kind of 30-year-old white guy. They wanted to go a different direction, which just makes sense. But for me, it was a little bit of an affirmative action. And that kind of radicalized me to be like, hey, I need to create my own podcast. I need to create my own thing. So, Michael, when I go to these meetings at the beginning of the pandemic, I went to the mayor of Dallas and was dead serious. Was like, why are we closing the parks? They turn off the water fountains that my dogs drink out of at the park, and this is April in Texas. It's hot. I'm like, how does this stop the spread of anything? And they looked at me like I was the biggest idiot in the world. Just, who is this conspiracy theorist? I mean, just didn't show me any attention. And then when I noticed the more absurd I got, the more uncomfortable they felt. And I turned those NPCs, those non-playable characters of politicians, into, now I can control them all I want, because now they have to get mad at me. They have to kick me out. They have to be embarrassed. So, yeah, it's kind of just, it started off, earnestly. And then I realized what's the most effective is, like I keep saying, those rules for radicals is that we have to do, desperate times cause for desperate measures. Whatever the saying is, we cannot use these orthodox tactics of being nice and respectful. We have to somehow use humor to break people away or free from this trauma-based mind control that the mainstream media has everybody under.
So how much of the act is, a sincere reflection of your political views, and how much of it is this sort of Alinskyite working around the system? Because if we're locked into this system, the liberal establishment is just going to continue to rule. How much of it is intentionally, you say something you don't believe, or you act in a way that you wouldn't ordinarily act, just to get them to jump out of their ordinary trains of thought?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could say like shock factor for shock factor, but let me tell you, my political leanings is I'm a populist. I actually, even though I'm now skew more conservative, I am a proud tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist. I believe the weapons of mass destruction that we never found in the Middle East, the 20-year war that we had, I just think that the government will lie to us and they will pull all sorts of tricks. And I think the pandemic woke a lot of people up to that. So my point being is, when you have the populist mindset and, you want to say, I'm conservative, I want the government left out of everything. But at the same time, when I sold cars, the government made sure that I gave them an inspection. If I didn't give a customer an inspection, then, I could be liable to getting in trouble if I sold them a lemon. So it's kind of good that the government gets involved in some stuff, but I don't want them, because they mess everything up. But when it comes to the healthcare system, why is it that insulin costs $200 in Texas, but it's $7 in Mexico? But if I want to get 10,000 vaccines, that's all free. So we need a reallocation of funds. And I'm not saying we should have free healthcare, but we should make healthcare more affordable. I think that would just benefit society. So even though I'm more conservative, I really kind of consider myself in the middle when it comes to my political leanings. I don't like to say that I'm ultra far right. That's what they label me, Proud Boy, far right. When in reality, that's not the case. I mean, I'm anti-abortion. Obviously, there's some huge stuff that I'm really staunch on that you would say that's super conservative. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not against social services. I'm not against helping people. But letting 100,000, drug overdose happens because of fentanyl this past year, just having a wide open border that's creating a welfare state, I'm not down with that. So I like to consider myself somewhere in the middle.